loudspeaker, which was known as the cone speaker. Now, it used the same device that was in the Baldwin headset. It used a permanent magnet and a vibrating device here, and it was a high impedance device that worked right in the plate circuit, and that this moved, and it operated the diaphragm here, and it didn't require any battery voltage to operate the loudspeaker. This was a fairly good speaker and was built into consoles and used for quite some time. Then the next speaker that came out was the dynamic. Now, Magnavox built a dynamic loudspeaker in about 1911, and they're the first ones to build dynamic speakers. This is a horn speaker, but it's actually a dynamic movement in which there is a moving coil which moves in an electromagnetic field. In other words, voltage actually is placed on a coil inside of the speaker, and it gives it much more power. Then our modern electromagnetic loudspeakers developed from this, and finally they got away from the electromagnetic part entirely, so now we use permanent magnet speakers. This was a Crosley. This came out about 1926. They called this a Dynacone loudspeaker. It sold for $22.50, the sign says here. And but you could tell the difference. The dynamic speaker had 4 wires on it, but a regular magnetic speaker had only 2 wires. So that was the way you could tell whether it was a dynamic or not. This has 4 wires, so it's a dynamic speaker. Okay, the biggest problem was the problem of batteries. I mentioned that you had to take your storage battery down to get it charged. Finally, people got Tungar battery chargers, and they would charge their own batteries, but they would still have to buy new B batteries. Now, the receiver would require from 90 volts to 135, even as much as 180 volts of B batteries, and that became quite an expensive item. So they started experimenting with heavy filament tubes. Now, the first heavy filament tube that came out was the 226. It was a 2.5 volt filament, but it had a thoriated filament, and the problem was that if you put alternating current on those real thin filaments that were used for the battery sets, that the filament would vibrate due to the 60 cycle AC and make hum in your receiver. So by using a heavy filament and center tapping it, they got rid of some of that noise. Then from that they graduated to the heater type tube, which had a heater inside of a column, and that was the 227 was the first heater type tube. This is an RCA 227. If you can notice the construction here, I don't know if you can get in on this or not, but you'll notice that there is a white tubular device down inside, and then inside of that is a thin wire that heated this up, and this became hot and emitted the electrons. Okay, so that took care of the filament problem, and now then we had to get rid of the problem of having batteries. Now this set, this is a freshman masterpiece. Incidentally, the dial here is calibrated in meters and not in kilocycles like our radios are today. 500 meters was about 500 kilocycles, and the high frequency end of the band was a lower reading in meters, but it would be higher in kilocycles. Well, now this radio here has wires that was designed to hook the batteries onto, but as I say, they tried to get rid of the batteries, so then came the thing called